To me, yes, indeed. I'm joined, in fact, now in studio by Jacob Enoh Eben, who is a spokesperson for the African Union chairperson, who's going to explain to us that position, the AU's position on the matter that seems to have hijacked this conference at the moment. For everyone is talking about the issue of President Al Bashir. Welcome, and thanks very much for joining us.
It's a great pleasure.
The AU's position on this matter?
Well, I really find it very intriguing that when Africa starts beginning to talk about very critical and important issues that concern the development, the integration of our continent, then we get distractions. And this is just one more. And I hope the media and the rest of the public will cooperate so that we get an understanding that when we are talking about critical issues of the continent, distractions should really be managed in a manner that shouldn't derail us. That's the first thing. The second thing is about the President's participation, His Excellency Al Bashir. He's here like one of the 54 heads of state and government who are expected to attend all AU summits, and he's attending. And as a matter of fact, the AU, wherever it is on the continent, wherever it's having a summit, takes that space, so it becomes an AU's jurisdiction. So I'm not so sure what conversations people are having and why they feel what should happen to any particular head of state.
So really it is not up to South Africa to hand over, or whatever the demand is, President Bashir to the ICC or Interpol or anyone for that matter?
I really don't think so, because if you would recall, the last couple of summits of the African Union heads of states have had this issue as part of the agenda, just talking about Africa's relations with the ICC and to redefine it. And that's why enormous pressure was put for President Kenyatta's trial to be dropped, which has been dropped. And so we're working now on other cases, the Deputy President of Kenya, as well as that of President Al Bashir. And for us, and it's not to communicate that the African Union supports impunity. In fact, if you look at the Constitutive Act, we are moving forward to having an African court where we are going to have such issues. I don't know if those detractors who are talking about the AU and supposed promulgation of impunity are looking at the trial of Enoh Eben that's currently taking place in Senegal. Okay, just to tell the public and the rest of the world that the AU doesn't promote impunity, but then we are working to ensure that our continent really achieve some of its goals of integration, development, and for that matter, the theme for this year is women's empowerment and development towards Agenda 2063, and would really like to focus on this.
Which is what we've been doing the whole of this past week. Just for clarity, can you restate the AU's position on sitting heads of state versus vis-a-vis the ICC?
The AU has said no sitting heads of state will be tried.
And that remains the position. If you will, how much progress has been made towards the, I suppose my previous guest actually said the same thing, that the solution to this is to have that African court where Africans themselves will deal with these issues. What progress has been made so far, if any?
In the last summit in Malabo, the summit that held in Malabo last June, one of the decisions that was taken was basically to establish the African Court and to extend its jurisdiction to look at other issues of things like illicit flow of finance. You know, there are a number of things, and so that is going through the process of ratification as we speak. And now, as quickly as member states will be able to ratify, once we achieve the minimum level required for ratification, then the issue of financing, which again is part of the agenda the African Union Commission chairperson has been pursuing to ensure that we have the necessary resources to finance our priorities. So we're looking forward to making sure that that code actually goes into force as soon as possible.
Well, that was going to be my next question. That aren't we being a little ambitious here, given that so far a handful of countries have had to carry the African Union. Yes, there are lots of countries, we are told, that are willing to actually put their money where their mouths are, but so far, they haven't been responding as fast as we all of us would wish they do.
There are a number of things here. One is that I don't think it's a bad thing to be ambitious. Okay, the continent is ambitious. We're talking about Agenda 2063. Some people think it's a wild dream. We're breaking it out into 10. We started with the first 10-year implementation plan, which hopefully will be adopted this time around. And one of the issues, I may just want to take an example so that people disconnect the issue of just summits and no action. One of the issues that came up when we were doing Agenda 2063 was that women said we are tired of using the handheld hose. And so during the summit, actually today or tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, the chairperson of the African Union Commission will be handing symbolically to all heads of states and government tillers, which is a representation of the fact that we are moving, we are making progress. And so when we come back to the rest of our agenda, one of which is really moving up with the issue of alternative sources of funding, that has been plaguing the continent. They've changed the formula a bit more, and so we are looking forward to really speeding up the implementation. And the resources are not only going to come from member states. Okay, yesterday we had the launch, the fundraising with the private sector. We saw the role that the private sector played during the fight against Ebola, and how we raised funds. We saw the private sector again yesterday, and they want to be part of Africa's development. Okay, so we are tapping into these resources that are available to the continent in order to make sure that we have the resources to fund our priorities and not some other person's priorities.
Now, very, very briefly, we're expecting the start, the formal start of the session of the heads of state to happen or to take place any time from now. Take us through the agenda, if you will.
We are definitely, have already started. The heads of state are meeting in what we call the closed session. They are having frank conversations among themselves. And immediately after that session, they definitely just go, photo shoot, just get a group photograph, and then return for the official opening ceremony, which I'm sure SABC is going to put it on live stream.
Well, we were supposed to carry it live about 45 minutes ago, yes.
Yeah, we're hoping. And one of the issues I must probably say is we're looking at issues of better managing our organization, issues of time management. And so we are hoping that we will do better. Now, after the open session, then the observers and the rest of our partners will have to give space for discussions to continue in closed sessions. And they'll be the heads of states will be looking at key decisions that have to be taken. That would have come from the Permanent Representative Committee to the Executive Council and then to them. And so they will have to go through those in the next 2 days, and then we'll close tomorrow with the final decisions.
Mr. Ben, thank you very much.
It's my great pleasure.
Jacob Enoh Eben, who is the spokesperson for the chairperson of the African Union. And as you heard it, from him, we are indeed waiting for that session where the leaders of the African Union, heads of state, will be speaking, some of them, during that open session. But as we speak, they are still locked in conversations, frank conversations, as he says, behind closed doors. So we will keep on waiting. For now, though, it's back to you, to me in the studio.